Please be seated. The record will reflect that the entire panel has returned. Just for your planning purposes, we will take our normal lunch hour. We may go a few minutes late depending where we are in the argument, but we will definitely have a solid hour for lunch. Okay? All right? Attorney Pavis, whenever you're ready, please.
It's still morning. Good morning. In many decades and hundreds of trials of doing this, I've never been prouder to be a lawyer than I am right now. And you're thinking, why? Because I believe in the rule of law. And the rule of law is under attack in this country. Some people believe it. Mr. J0nes believes it. I'm here to defend Alex Jones. I'm here to defend free speech systems. In my opening statement, I began, and I'm going to read it because I wrote it then because I was worried I'd forget it. We live in times of deep political division in this country. One of the issues dividing us is guns, their possession, their use, and their control. The divides are deep, even dangerous. Don't let anyone tell you this trial is a means of addressing gun violence or political divisions. We're not here to make political statements, to reform the world, to take a stand against extreme speech. This trial is not a cultural moment. We are here because on another date and at another time, a court held Alex Jones and free speech systems liable for harming the plaintiffs. You are forbidden to speculate why that happened. Your only job here is to determine how much damage my clients caused each plaintiff, and then to assign a dollar value to suffering. The case comes down to money. How much money will each plaintiff get? We're asking you here to follow the law and nothing but the law. Wait, before you play that, you will have in your jury deliberation room exhibit books, and you will have the documents that have been introduced, and you'll have pages that reflect videos. You've not been shown all of the videos in this case. You've been shown the videos the plaintiffs selected that most proved their points, and they've been able to argue a straw man. Alex Jones did all of this, to set up the Sandy Hook families. He put a target on their back, and he monetized it. That's what you were told. I'm going to show you an exhibit. It takes about 19 minutes to play. I believe it's exhibit 45. Zach, please press play. Watch this video.
As all of our hardcore listeners know from their own research, this country is in the middle of a civil war against globalist forces that are openly trying to stop the populist Americana new renaissance that we are attempting to bring back into play. Free market, true open societies versus globalism and corporate crony capitalist tyranny. We have an overload of news and information, obviously, today. We have Democratic Party throws a new giant temper tantrum because their Russia investigation has come up 100% high and dry. They've now thrown a new giant temper tantrum to restart another fake investigation, this time a civil one, so they can continue to say there's an investigation. Oh, we're deposing this person, we're deposing that person. And the lawsuit is gigantic, making all sorts of claims of the criminal activities that went on with Trump, WikiLeaks, and the Russians with zero, not one scintilla of evidence. Amazing. The Russians did not hack the DNC. It was leaked out of the DNC. We know from the files released that have digital coding on them that they were downloaded at 6 times the speed of the fastest internet connection 2 years ago. You understand, folks? 6 times the fastest connection, still 4 times the fastest connection today. It was downloaded at point blank range, just like Snowden did in Hawaii inside the big NSA center. It was downloaded at point blank range. And now that's back in the news again today. Unbelievable disinformation. But notice, what did Trump say during the campaign? He said, I don't know the Russians or who else. Might be some fat guy in his, mother's basement, for all I know. You could ping off anywhere in the world. There's no evidence it's Russia. But he said, but if it is the Russians, release it. It's about what's in the WikiLeaks. Not about changing the subject, as they always do, into who released it. What about all the crimes? And I heard Owen Schroyer did a great job yesterday during the broadcast when I took time off to be with some family. Said that today on the War Room, he's going to spend an hour, maybe spend the whole 3 hours, getting into the WikiLeaks and the top 100 WikiLeaks, and then you calling in and mentioning what WikiLeaks you think are most important. Just like they hammer all this fake Russiagate stuff constantly, we should be hammering the bona fides, the bones, the guts, the reality of what is in those things and all the other leaks that they don't even deny are real. Sensational crimes, sensational pay-to-play from the Russians and the Communist Chinese and all these big foundations, billions of dollars going to Hillary, hundreds of millions from the Russians. Yeah, they could give money to the Secretary of State to then give them a third of our uranium. They did it. Absolutely. Do the Russians want to get our secrets and get our industry? Absolutely. That's what we do to them. The point is that the traitor's Hillary. So, you got the Democratic Party files monster temper tantrum because, as I said last week and this week, the wheels came off 6 months ago with the fake Russia investigation, but now it's really come up dry. It's moved on to the Arab Emirates and it's moved on to all these other places. So we're going to be getting into some of that as well. But this really shows how desperate they are. Matt's a great producer in there, and he's really hot and mad over this Megyn Kelly thing and other stuff. He's just like, you got to cover this today, Alex. You got to. It's one of the top stories in the country. Every channel is lying about you. Local radio, TV, everything. You've got to cover it because it's bigger than you, Alex. And he's right. He said this is a chilling effect. This is so bad. He's like shaking with anger. I've never seen Matt angry like this. There's like 20 minutes of news clips attacking me. I can't get to it. It's just all lies, folks. But I'm going to try to go to some of it. But here's the bottom line. The media brings up Pizzagate and then misrepresents what I've said to beat me over the head and drag me to the mud. And then say that I need to be banned off the air. They bring up Sandy Hook and say that I say nobody died when I never said that. I played devil's advocate. They took it out of context. Megyn Kelly plays clips that are about Hillary being responsible for thousands of dead children in the Middle East. She edits that and then plays it when she was at Fox News saying that I was saying Hillary was killing kids in a basement. So the defamation is that they continue to bring up these cases, never letting me drop it. I don't think anything was going on at that pizza place. We investigated it. We walked it back. We've clarified. I'm done talking about it. In fact, just take it off the screen. Because it overshadows all the real stuff going on that I've got stacks of in mainstream news here. And then you've got Sandy Hook, where we talk about the police stand down. We talk about the men in the woods with guns that were on the news on helicopter shots. We said there's anomalies here. And then some of the people thinking it was a total hoax began to think I was covering it up. And I went, wait a minute, I'm not covering anything up. And I'm done with this tar baby about a year into it. That's 4 years ago. And I constantly say, mass shootings really happen, but governments stand down at Sandy Hook. They stand down in Florida. They try to take me off the air, try to take me off YouTube, saying I said nobody died in Florida. You know I didn't do that, and they're liars. So then they get 3 of the parents of the poor little children that died when another Prozac head with a gun went and killed them and got the gun illegally. and the media exacerbates it. They bring it up and they say Alex Jones is attacking these families when it's the media dragging this out every week of every month for the last 5 years, saying this. The media never covered me in Sandy Hook at first. But they saw when I said, I think people died there, because Paul Watson totally convinced me. I was just asking questions, and Paul got mad at me about this. And I've been on record for 4 years about that. I respect Paul. And so a lot of my listeners got mad at me saying, oh, you're covering it up. So they saw that as weakness in the media because I'm a real journalist. And they know full well. So I don't get equal time on Anderson Cooper or on Megyn Kelly or any of these programs. And they get these people up there with Anderson Cooper, and they say that I'm bringing this out and I'm victimizing them. Megyn Kelly called me in April of last year, early April. She said, I want to come to town. Well, you heard it. I secretly recorded it. And I said, listen, I'm not getting into Sandy Hook or Pizzagate. She goes, no, I'm not going to get into that. No. It's all about you and your custody battle and how interesting you are. You're such a man. I want to go out to dinner with you. And man, you're really, all this other stuff. Because I didn't record the first part where she was saying how good looking I was and stuff in the car. I was driving to work one Saturday. I said, let me call you back in 5 minutes. Because it was like, oh, you're just so manly. You're so, and I was like, you heard some of it. Once I got here, I recorded what was going on because I didn't have a recording app on my phone. I have the voice memo thing, but it doesn't record phone calls. So I had to get another company phone and then record it. And I knew it was a total setup. That I'm like, oh, really? Tell me about how it's 6 a.m. again, sweetheart? So you can read it. Alex Jones, Megyn Kelly, full interview leaked. You can go read that, listen to it, see it. So I'm saying I will not talk about Sandy Hook. Do you understand, honey? Oh, yes. Then she has the bold cojones to go on her TV show yesterday morning with some of the parents and say, isn't it horrible he keeps bringing it up? Isn't it horrible he's sending crazy people to attack you? I'm not covering it. I'm not bringing it up. I'm telling Megyn Kelly I don't want to talk about it. She's here a year ago. In the 8 hours she interviews me to edit it together. And I keep saying, I think Sandy Hook happened. Well, why'd you say this? Why'd you say that? I said, well, I questioned some of it, what was going on early on because of anomalies and a stand down. Edits that together to reissue it and put it out. The woman is the consummate snake. She is in my view, a corrupt, evil, lying lawyer masquerading as a journalist who is a monster affront to the truth, who wants to create a chilling effect to shut down alternative information and news because her ratings are in the toilet, all the rest of MSM. Stop victimizing the people of Sandy Hook and the people of Pizzagate. Stop it. So Donald Trump's been in office less than a year and a half, and like Lazarus, America has crawled out of its tomb economically, culturally, spiritually in many respects. We've really turned the corner. Lazarus has a heartbeat. He looks like hell, smells bad, but he's on the mend. And the banshees, the vampires, are going into conniption fits of intimidation, of bullying, of just going wild. And a lot of Americans are saying, I'm going to keep my head down and see who wins this. You're not Americans if you do that. America is America because we had guts. We stood up. The whole world, every major historian said, we were smart, hardworking, and meaner than hell, stubborn like a mule, didn't back down. That's what built it. That's why, on average, we've got all this wealth. It's because we're not easy to push around. Well, I see myself as a throwback then. But America was the vanguard, the cutting edge. We're not going back to American values. We are getting back to the future, back to the real agenda that was making us so successful. Coming up, Roger Stone is listed in the giant lawsuit from the Democratic Party. Now, they already had Obama's law firm group that he founded 1 month before he left office to, quote, stop the Trump agenda. Remember that headline. In fact, type that in. It's from CNN. Obama founds legal group to stop Trump agenda. Didn't say Russia, to stop Trump. They developed the little breadcrumbs to put out the new fake suit, and the Democratic Party, with all its money, it's behind it to crush these individuals. You talk about Federal Elections Commission issue. They shouldn't be able to do that. Should the Republicans be able to fund all these people so they can defend themselves? Oh, no. The Democrats will say, no. We can use our money to sue you, the deep state, but you can't use any government money to stop us. Roger Stowe's the next segment. But let's get back briefly to Megyn Kelly. I may just play a few minutes of this, though. It really is hard to watch. CNN, NBC, all of them are in the tank. They admit that. And they're doing everything they can to try to shut down liberals, conservatives, you name it. In fact, there's a big hubbub on the internet today that all of these mainline Democrats who are very, very popular but have their own shows, like Jimmy Dore and others, CNN is now pushing to have them blocked, their monetization taken, and to have that removed. Now, CNN admits a month ago they've been lobbying to have us removed, and then lying about what we've said to try to set the case for that. So they defame us, and they try to silence us so they can tell lies about us and no one can respond. Just like I got hundreds and hundreds of media requests saying, what is your statement, what is your response on Monday? And I sent the media a video response, and still for days after days they say, oh, Jones didn't respond. Jones didn't respond. Jones didn't respond. Megyn Kelly at least said, oh, he did respond on his YouTube. Lady, I'd have got on an airplane and come up there and got in studio with you and the father of one of the victims. I'd have said, sir, I've been saying for years that I'm sure people died there. And I never said for sure nobody died. I said that I played devil's advocate and said I could see why some people don't believe the government because it's lied about babies and incubators. But it's been edited and then it's brought back up like I'm bringing it back up. I'd say, Megyn, you told me before you came here we weren't going to get into Sandy Hook, but then you got into it, and then you say I'm a horrible person, bringing it back up. You're the horrible person. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not going to be a statute in the law. They want the Alex Jones statute to preemptively ban people and preemptively ban questioning public events. They don't want you to question their narratives when they put out their narratives of chemical gas attacks, and 3 times it turns out to be the rebels. We're not sure this time. It's still up in the air. But they have the motive. And Senator Paul and all these other generals say that Assad doesn't have the motive, and the rebels have been caught staging stuff before, and they've been putting out fake videos of gas attacks and admitting it's fake. I mean, this is getting crazy. And what does it say in internal Google documents from a year ago? We want Jones shut down because he changed the narrative on Syria chemical attacks being staged. They don't want me here, so you don't have a voice, so we can talk about this. There's another article on Infowars.com. CNN associates Infowars with Pedo Channel in bid to shut down its competition. And hundreds of liberal channels that are popular, but that are independent and anti-war, they're being shut down. They're being blocked. And the left is so upset that people like Jimmy Dore has left the Young Turks, and he's more popular than them now, and that they want him off the air. That's what this is all about. And I've invited Jimmy Dore on the show. It doesn't matter, we disagree on 80% of stuff. We agree, and he points it out, that they're shutting down conservatives and liberals that are non-interventionists. CNN, and compares this to Nazis and pedophiles in the same newscast. I've got a lawsuit. I've got a real defamation suit. Because this stuff is causing damage with advertisers openly saying they're saying this so we lose advertisers. You understand what we're saying here? They say malice aforethought and to do harm. They compare us to pedophile sites, white supremacist sites, who, by the way, have a right to operate. I don't agree with it. They have a right. Pedophile sites don't. And then say we should be taken down. That's all in a CNN report last night. This group that force feeds itself to you at hotels and bars and restaurants and train stations and bus stations and airports that you just can't get away from. It's like syphilis or gonorrhea or herpes. It won't go away, and it's just always there like a cold sore coming up. CNN is raping this country, raping the First Amendment. And it's all part of this big deep state constellation attack that's going on. Let's play some of this. This is Megyn Kelly. Father of slain Sandy Hook first grader Alex Jones must come clean on his lies. So they accuse me of being a liar and calling them liars in the suit. It was filed here in Travis County on Monday. They say also that I must do a retraction, and I refused. They sent the letter last Wednesday. It had a month for me to do an apology or retraction, but I can't apologize or retract something I didn't do. Then they instantly file it, say that I'm not apologizing, say that I'm saying nobody died, and then saying, why won't he go away? Why won't he stop saying and stop bullying us, Alex? Well, my audience knows what really happened. This is worldwide news, from Australia to Taiwan to England. Sandy Hook father calls out Alex Jones on Megyn Kelly. It's amazing. Megyn Kelly, like a vampire, has been on this story and bringing it up and misrepresenting what I've said to hurt me. And she brings the pain up to the families again. And I'm sure they're smart people, these families. You know, they don't want this pain to their family and the memory brought up. I'm not bringing it up. Except when they're in the news and the media is there saying I've said things I didn't say. So I'm going to ask the families to actually look at what I've said and to come on this show. But you notice I'm not invited on any of these shows. It's all got to be one-sided so that Megyn Kelly can lie to everybody. Roger Stone's coming up. I'm going to probably put on the end of this some of the clips, but it's just insane. I probably should just shoot a whole special report on this Megyn Kelly thing, because they're the ones bringing it up. They're the ones misrepresenting and then saying I am. It's total and complete fraud from the media.
We are here for a hearing in damages, and the law limits what I can and cannot argue. I'm not arguing that this is a political case. I showed you that exhibit so that you recognize some of the clips and snips you saw. You see them in context. And does that really sound like the kind of man who put a target on the family's back? Does it sound like somebody who sat up at night deciding I can monetize the family's grief? If it sounds that way to you, then you'll do what you think is appropriate. You will see a series, and you have in this trial seen a series of videos, small segments of larger videos. They're like 1A, 1B, 1C, 1E. If you're in the jury room and you want to see the truth, the whole truth about Alex Jones, ask to view a couple of those videos. Zach, can you show us 1E?
This is the attack. Look, people got to find the clips the last 2 months. I said they are launching attacks. They're getting ready. I can see them warming up with Obama. They've got a bigger majority in the Congress now, in the Senate. They are going to come after our guns, look for mass shootings. And then magically it happens. They are coming. They are coming. They are coming. They've already taken over healthcare. The premiums are doubling. They're bankrupting that. They're already shipped GM to China. They are going to gut this country. They're going to shut down the power plants. They're going to bankrupt us. They are re-educating us. Just like we were Ukrainians and they're Russians. They want us bankrupt. They want the counties and the cities bankrupted and federalized. The feds themselves run by globalists. What does the new magazine say? You can get it by subscribing. You can get 12 issues. Great way. This man wants your guns. And I break down here, they're declaring war on the Second Amendment, period. They are declaring war on the Second Amendment, period. They are coming after our Second Amendment. It is happening. They want to kill America in 2013. That is their goal. That is what they want. They are moving to do it. Send your tips to Real Alex Jones on Twitter. Tell me what you think.
You've seen that video any number of times, twice now this morning, and how many times during trial? I don't know. Take a look at one while you're deliberating and ask yourself whether that's the conduct of a person who put a target on the back of families he'd never met. He was reacting. He told you from the stand. Mr. Maddie asked him, "You care about your integrity more than anything, don't you?" "No," he said, and I'll do my best Alex impersonation. "I care about smashing the globalists." They ridicule that. That's their right. There's a larger context for the speech than the speech that has been presented to you here today, and it's in evidence. All you have to do is look at it. They're all plaintiffs' exhibits. They're not my exhibits. They picked and they chose what served the narrative, their narrative. All of us, I think some of you are a little bit younger, all of us recall where we were the morning of December 14th, 2012. And you heard news that you just couldn't imagine to be true. I was pacing the halls of another courthouse on the other side of the state awaiting a verdict in yet another case. And I thought, my God, how can this be? Children murdered in a school. My first reaction was fear for my client. It was a murder case. And I wondered whether the jury would hear that and hold the gun against him. I'm old, my kids are gone. My thoughts didn't turn to them. Mr. Jones' first thought turned to his narrative, the deep state. Mr. Maddy showed a statement that he made about a global conspiracy of financial and governmental elites that want to finance, that want to control, enslave, and kill us. There's a crisis going on in this country. I led my opening statement with it. I give it to you now. Are these the words of a man who, for the sake of $1, targeted these families? Or are they the words of a man who's lost trust in our basic institutions? Over the portal, the doorway of the United States Supreme Court are the following words: equal justice under law. Equal justice under law. Every person in this country accused of anything has a right to come into this courtroom and rely upon the rule of law as a defense. And every person, at least in most cases, has a right to come to a jury and ask the jury to evaluate the case under law. Mr. Jones is doing that. Did he take the stand and say, in your presence, in the presence of Judge Bellis, that he believes Judge Bellis is a tyrant? Yes, he did, and he does. He has his reasons. They're not for you to consider. Did he stand in this courtroom and go toe-to-toe with Attorney Maddy when Attorney Maddy launched an assault on him? That seemed to be a little bit more than was called for. Yeah, called him an ambulance chaser. He said, nobody complained about others when they did similar things. That was an ugly display. I'm not sure why it happened, but it did. But you saw it. And I was reminded of the words of Aristotle, candidly, and what Aristotle said about anger. And I'm going to read it so I don't get it wrong. I might be Greek, but I'm not as smart as he was. Anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, and at the right time, and for the right purpose, and in the right way, that's not within everyone's power, and it's not easy. I would suggest that a good part of the plaintiff's lawyer's case in this matter was an effort themselves to gin up anger, because this is a hearing in damages. And the angrier you get, the more money you will give. You're sort of like a pinball machine. Put enough anger in there, pull the lever, and maybe all that money they talked about will pop out. It's not the law. The judge will tell you the law, and if I misread this, listen to the judge. Under the rule of compensatory damages, the purpose of an award of damage is not to punish or penalize the defendants for their conduct, but to compensate plaintiffs for their resulting harms and losses. I'd ask you to take that to heart, because right now I'm under that portal, equal justice under the law. I'm pleading my case for what might be the most unpopular man in Connecticut, if not America. And I'm not apologizing for it for one moment, because I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. I trust each and every one of you. We've sat through a veil of tears in this courtroom that could not help but have stirred your emotion. Could not help but to have stirred your sympathy. Could not help but to give you a bias against Alex Jones. The judge will tell you sympathy, bias, and emotion don't play a role in a hearing in damages. I didn't write the law. I'm a lawyer. You must follow it. You must follow it. How much damages were really proven in this case? They've given you some numbers. I'm not going to comment on their numbers. Well, I said that, and now I'm getting ready to do so. They've given you some numbers, and they've given it to an estimate and basically said it's up to you. Now it is. But they didn't talk to you about everything you're going to be asked to decide. And I want you to ask yourself why. Who's in it for the money here? Who's in it for the money here? I'm not going to pick on the plaintiffs. You notice I hardly questioned any of them. I'm a father too. I cannot fathom the grief that these people have endured in the loss of their child. You heard gripping testimony. They lost their grip on the world. I could go moment to moment, and I tried not to think beyond the next step because I did not know what would happen. I lost my moorings. They lost their hearts, a part of their soul. Alex Jones didn't kill their children. You never heard the name from the plaintiff's lawyer. Adam Lanza did that. Alex Jones reacted from afar because he thought it was another sign of his conspiracy, and the judge will tell you that as a result of a ruling on another day, Jones knew it to be a lie. That's what the judge will tell you. But you will evaluate the evidence in this case and reach conclusions about how persuasive the case that the plaintiffs put on is. That's your job. Not mine, not theirs. Now, when you go back into the jury room, you're going to be shown a form. It's a verdict form. And you're going to be asked plaintiff by plaintiff to make decisions about a dollar amount to give them for damage to their defamation, slander damages, a dollar amount for emotional distress. And suggestions were made about how to arrive at that sum. Depend, 550 at a minimum, 8-point-something billion, I think is what it comes to, multiplied times 15. It would take a person earning $100,000 a year, hundreds of years, to make $550 million. Where did that number come from? And what didn't the plaintiff's lawyers tell you? They told you you're the conscience of the community, hold Alex accountable, make a point. They never talked about the damage that he actually caused these folks in this hearing of damages. You heard from no physician. You saw no medical bill. You heard nothing about a lost wage. No receipt for anything has been put before you. You'll have some anecdotal evidence in the form of affidavits in the jury room. They may have bought a security system, but they're not asking for economic damages. They're asking for damages for their distress. And from the plaintiff's perspective, you can't give enough. You have to do this, they told you in opening statements, to stop Alex Jones, but that's not why you're here. You're here to award a fair, just, and reasonable amount. And I can see some of you looking at me with some skepticism thinking, what do you call a lawyer at the bottom of the ocean a good start? No. I am here to vindicate the promise of equal justice under the law for a despised human being. And there is no place on earth that I would rather be than right here, right now, with you, urging you to do the right thing. Because when you do the right thing and you decide this case according to law, you make the world a better place. You, as jurors, are the hope of our community. In a time of deep divisions and anger and the sort of stuff that you see Alex talking to his millions of people on the air, you get to speak truth to rage, you get to speak truth to power, you get to speak truth to plaintiff's lawyers. Here's what they didn't tell you when they were asking you to pull the casino lever on money. You also get to decide a simple yes or no question here. Should Alex Jones pay punitive damages? Why did they leave that out, do you suppose? I'm going to tell you, I've got my hunch. There's no money in that. The money, the judge will tell, punitive damages is an award of attorney's fees and costs. That's not going to be $100 million, $200 million, I don't think. There are a lot of lawyers here from that firm, some at the table, some in the audience. It's not going to be $100 million. So they gin up the compensatory damages number and say, give us all you can imagine. It's up to you. You decide. Is $550 million the minimum? Maybe $8 billion is the maximum. You decide. And do it as the conscience of the community to send a message and so forth. That's what punitive damages are for. The judge will tell you there's a difference between compensatory and punitive damages. If you think Alex Jones deserves to be punished within the meaning of the law, and again, equal justice under law. That's all we have. Any one of us can be brought into a courtroom tomorrow or the next day for an act or omission, real or imagined. Any one of us. When it matters, you want someone here. I'm on the barbed wire, as it were. I'm here for Alex Jones. I'm here asking you for a verdict according to the law. Is there something wrong with that? Is there? Let's take a look at the evidence that you were shown. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to say much about the plaintiffs. Again, I remind you, I didn't cross-examine. What do you say to a woman who loved her child? We had hours of what amounted to memorial service here. The memorial service, perhaps the group of them never got to have for their children in 2012. And the portrait that emerged is that these were the luckiest children alive. They were much loved, doted, cared for, and their parents wanted nothing more than to be good parents for them. And then, according to the plaintiff's theory, Alex woke up. Within hours, he heard about this, and he reached the conclusion, I must target them for work. That's their claim. But they produced what I assume is the best case they could marshal. The very best case they could marshal. I'd submit to you they're lucky they're here on a hearing in damages. Let's talk about their evidence. And you heard about it this morning. Mark Mills, remember him? He's the guy who in February of 2014 crashed a Super Bowl press conference. 9/11 was an inside job by the government. Alex admired that. He talks. Gee, we should talk later. Matthew Mills turns up at a Soto road race, and they want you to believe Alex sent him. Turned up in November of 2015. How many months later? Was there any evidence that Mills was on the payroll? Did they produce it? They elected. They didn't have to put on evidence of this sort in a hearing in damages. But they elected to put it on, and I think I'm within my rights to comment on it.
I have to object at that this point.
Sustained.
As to Wolfgang Halbig and Dan Badandi, is there any evidence that they ever visited a family member?
Just another saying
All right, let's move on, counsel.
A business card on a windshield, who put it there?
Objection. Saying.
Alex Jones didn't invent the internet. Alex Jones didn't invent the divisions in this country. Even Clint Watts had to acknowledge the following. You'll remember Clint. He's the guy who went to West Point, then did a brief stint in the FBI, and then went somewhere else, went back to the FBI, and now formed a consulting firm. Got paid $925 an hour to come here and tell us about messenger, medium, and method. And he talked about fear. And I asked him about the relationship between fear and anger, and he really couldn't comment on that. But I did follow up with another question. Mr. Watts, are you saying that Alex created this fear in people, or was he responding to fear that was already there? And he couldn't say. I thought Watts' testimony was amazing, frankly. Watts is a social media expert. He got his chops studying Al-Qaeda, he told you. And then once Al-Qaeda was struggling with developing its presence in the world online, he turned his focus to ISIS, another shadowy group in the Middle East. Both are groups that recruited people using fear, anger, demonization by way of charismatic messengers to get people to do things. Kill us. That's what terrorists do, right? And then he also said he offered his services to others, to businesses, to understand how social media could yield networks, how social media could yield influence in the world. And he never really took a position on what he thought of Alex Jones. Is Alex Jones a terrorist who died? Is Alex Jones a businessman who kept his business afloat by appealing to the fear of people he saw in the world for the reasons that you saw on Exhibit 45? This is not a case about politics. I remind you about that. It's a case about how much money will compensate the plaintiffs. You saw videotapes, ugly videotapes, and you'll see them again in rebuttal, I suspect, of Alex taunting Robbie Parker. And your heart went out to Robbie Parker, as did mine. He is a good and decent man. He did not deserve any of this. You heard testimony about emails. You heard testimony about comments on memorial pages. It's all but just a few that were apparently unearthed last month. You didn't see these emails they received. You didn't see the letters they received. You didn't see the notes left on the door. One of them was down in North Carolina, and somebody said, "Do you go to church?" I wasn't inspired to be flip and use humor. Was it a Satanist? No, that's Alex's fault. No video clips of the harassment, no police reports, no law enforcement officers, no court records about what happened to Mr. Mills after he was arrested, what he was arrested for, even if he was convicted. No one to corroborate the plaintiff's complaints but themselves, one after the other. And it all started to sound the same. Ask to see some of the testimony or hear some of the testimony back, and what you'll find is it was an average of 27 minutes in each plaintiff's testimony before they got to Alex Jones. And they always skipped over the day. And there was a highly stylized presentation of the evidence. It sounded the same, witness by witness by witness by witness by witness, and it was always the same sort of complaints. And it's all Alex's fault. Alex invented fear. Alex invented anger. Alex invented what's wrong with this world. Kill Alex and we'll all live happily ever after. Do you believe that for one moment? No doctor's bills, reports, very few mentions of treatment. Bill Oldenburg, the FBI agent, said he went to get AEP treatment, EAP treatment, employee assistance treatment, or talk to somebody for 6 hours or so after the shooting, or 6 sessions or so, rather. Sometimes in mail, on the phone, sometimes in person. Then years later, he did it again. And his complaint is that he's mistaken for Bill Wheeler, and for this he needs millions. An FBI agent. He's a hero. So was every other law enforcement officer that went there that day. None of us would want to walk into that veil of trauma, not for one moment. I thought Watts' testimony was interesting in another way. I asked him, Mr. Watts, you've read Shoshana Zuboff's book, The Age of Surveillance Capital. No, I haven't. You haven't? No, but I know what surveillance capital is, he said. And we talked about it. It's the marketing of our worst emotions, usually by social media companies, so that they can get data about us to manipulate us and sell us things. That doesn't make me Alex Jones or a conspiracy theorist. That's the reality of where we're living right now. That's why there's so much debate about social media. No lawyer in Connecticut or anywhere can walk into this courtroom and expect anything but scorn, and I will be attacked by Mr. Koskov in his rebuttal to me. It'll be Mr. Pettis that, Mr. Pettis this, all in an effort to gin you up and get you angry. So it doesn't mean a thing here for the plaintiff's lawyers if it doesn't go ka-ching.
So I'm going to just one moment, please. Attorney Pettis.
Yes, Judge. I'll move on.
No. Stop the clock. I won't use your time on this. Please refrain from any further personal attacks or comments about the plaintiff's lawyers or their law firm. It's highly improper. Let's move on. We'll talk about the plaintiff's case. I don't want to hear it again.
Yes, Judge. I'm not Alex Jones. I don't hold this judge in contempt. I believe in equal justice under the law. But I also believe in your unique powers in jurors to use common sense and to evaluate the evidence in this courtroom and to evaluate the proceedings in this courtroom. I'm not asking you to endorse Alex's decision to erupt at the end of what I would call a vicious riff and cross-examination. I'm not asking you to excuse his decision not come back to court. He believes it's a rigged system. You heard him say it. He believes you're rigged. You know better. Each of you knows better. And you will restore some confidence in some people, including viewers, by returning a calm and dispassionate verdict. It's not as though Mr. Jones didn't turn up to this trial at all. My recollection is he was cross-examined for the better part of the day. A day. The plaintiffs could have asked him anything they want, right? I think. I would have objected, certainly, if I thought it was objectionable. They never asked him about his net worth. They never asked him what expenses it took to operate his place. They never asked him what it would cost to run an organization with 70 people. They never showed him an organizational flow chart that turned up somewhere from someone through my office that no employee in that firm ever said they saw.
Objection. It was
The jury's memory will serve them.
It's a single talent business, the father told you, it all revolves around Alex Jones. I told you in the opening statement, he's a Dennis the Menace type character, a whirlwind of activity. You saw it in this courtroom, you saw it on the videotapes. Not everyone's cup of tea, but millions of people are tuning into him, and they're tuning out of what he calls mainstream media. Why? People have lost confidence in public institutions. The way this case broke, because it's a default, because of the various rulings from the court, I can't say much more than I've said for Alex Jones. But when I am attacked by Mr. Koskoff, be assured that there are things I would say if I could. I'm going to have to trust you, as Mr. Jones will, the community will, and everyone will, to follow the law and render a verdict in this case that gives Mr. Jones the plaintiffs rather in this case, fair, just, and reasonable compensation. You're considered emotional distress under the court's instructions, reputational harm under the court's instructions, and then a yes or no question on punitive damages. You are not to mix apples and oranges here. You do not award punitive damages under the guise of compensatory damages. It's simply not your role. May I have one moment, Judge?
Take your time.
Just want to take one look at my notes on the opening argument to see if there's anything that I need to address. There is. You were shown social media impressions, and Mr. Watts claimed that there were lots of them, 550 million. Have any of you ever visited a website that you like? Do you do it more than once a year? Do you do it more than once a day? I mean, they said 9.2 billion impressions over a 3-year period. That's more people than are alive. Are they claiming aliens from another planet looked at some of Mr. Jones's things? You just can't unpack these numbers in a sensible way. And they had the opportunity to do so. It was their burden of proof. You look at the engagements growing, and Zach, I'm going to need you to show us Exhibit 183. This is a plaintiff's exhibit. They're talking about how, I gather, what they're going to do to get ads For the 20-plus years Alex Jones has stood voicing the questions of the ignored and forgotten and the unappreciated. And with the help of experts, whistleblowers, and insiders, Alex Jones no longer stands alone. He now has a vast network behind him with a wide range of guests like Ted Nugent, Roger Stone, Megadeth frontman David Mustaine, director David Lynch, and Mike Judge. From Charlie Sheen's famous Tiger Blood rant to Donald Trump's promising, "I won't let you down, Alex. Your reputation is impeccable." Alex Jones and InfoWars is firmly rooted in American culture. InfoWars is no longer on the fringe. We're now one of the leaders in the new age of media, or the new wave of media. I read you that. It's in evidence. It's not my exhibit. You've already seen it. And you see this chart when they were trying to show you that Alex does everything for the sake of a buck, and they showed his numbers grow from 14 at 2.2 billion, 15 to 2.9, and 4.1 in 2016. We all know what happened in 2016. The man who said, "I won't let you down, Alex," got elected.
Sustained.
This is not an action to compensate the folks at Sandy Hook for the loss of their children. Alex Jones is not Adam Lanza. This is not an action to compensate Ms. Hensel for the suicide of her husband, Jeremy Richmond. There's been no evidence about the cause of that. This is not an action to make a political statement to silence Alex Jones, no matter how satisfying that might feel to you or to the plaintiffs, and perhaps to others. I suspect Alex Jones will never be silenced. He's a mad prophet, warning of a dystopia to come. Like the protagonist in Orwell's 1984, when everything was about information control, and it went into your room and the television was watching you. Like Aldous Huxley in Brave New World, when he talked about Soma, and if we could just drug ourselves into compliance, we'd accept any direction. Like Margaret Atwood in The Handmaid's Tale, where she talked about how a patriarchal society would use women as nothing other than breeding machines. There have always been mad, creative geniuses in the world who feared what was to come. And they speak loudly, and we have choices about whether to listen. But nothing in their speaking gives them the right to hurt others, and I'm not suggesting they do. I'm simply suggesting to you that if you fairly, calmly, and dispassionately look at the evidence in this case, you'll see that although it's a hearing in damages, it's a hearing in damages for an extraordinary purpose. Consider, you saw 1E. They're coming for our guns. It's an attack on the Second Amendment. I had one of the family members up, I believe it might have been Mr. Wheeler. He watched the video, still couldn't tell us what he thought Alex's position was. People are filling in for the president and giving a national address on gun control. They can't have feelings about what Alex knows about guns. Nobody heard of Alex until somehow in 2018 they all got together somewhere and decided to sue him.
Objection.
Sustained.
Jeremy Richmond told you why he took action against Alex.
Jeremy Richmond is deceased.
Thank you. You're exactly right.
Please.
Robbie Parker told you why he took action. Parkland shooting. I would suggest, and I'm going to be ridiculed for this and maligned, and walked on one edge of my name dragged through the mud yet again. That's okay. Did they exaggerate some of the harm here for the sake of politics, for the sake of guns, and the desire to make sure that this never happens to someone again, that no one else ever loses a child? Yeah, it makes you uncomfortable when I say that. I see you looking away. But it's a fair question, and it's one you have to wrestle with. Because otherwise, where was all that mountain of proof about the things they told you about and didn't show you? The unnamed people who Alex sent because they put a target on them.
Sustained.
Equal justice under the law. I've been doing this, I'm zeroing in on 70, and I've been in hundreds of trials, and I've seen thousands of jurors, and I've never been prouder than I am at this moment. Because the easy thing to do would be to tar and feather Alex Jones. But it's not what the law requires. The law requires that you serve equally, coolly, dispassionately to evaluate the evidence and render a fair, just, and reasonable verdict. I'm going to end this with what I call the trial lawyer's prayer. You know, the law is my shepherd, and I shall not want. Makes me plead in the presence of jurors. It leads to justice, and it restores my soul and the soul of the community. Your soul, your soul, your soul. Yea, and this case has never been truer than this case. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for the jury will hear me. It's judgment and good sense that save me and comfort me. The court prepares a table for me in the presence of my enemies. I will be shrouded in justice, my cup runneth over. And mercy, perhaps, goodness, mercy, perhaps justice will follow me all the days of my life. And I will dwell in a court forever, but maybe not. Thank you. My time here has ended, as probably will end soon in life in general. And when you get to 70, you start to wonder. But thank you for your kind attention. I beg you, follow the law in this case. Put aside passion, prejudice, and sympathy. When I'm attacked, I warned some of you during jury selection, it's not a popularity contest. Yeah, they're nicer guys. Okay, I get that. But in the dark night of the soul, when they come for you, you want a lawyer at your side. I'm proud to be at Alex's side. If he asks you, I ask you for justice.
All right, so we're just coming around to the lunch hour. We will take our hour lunch. We'll start up again at 2 p.m. for the plaintiff's rebuttal, which I understand Attorney Koskoff will present. And then we will turn to the charge, which I will give you on the law to apply. But one thing I do feel compelled to say, this is a civil case. I do not like to interject myself or interrupt counsel. Certainly you saw that I did interrupt Attorney Pattis. I just want to assure you, so that you're comfortable, that the court will not tolerate any personal attacks on lawyers, which is why I interrupted Attorney Pattis. Certainly the evidence could be commented on and arguments can be made, but there will be no personal attacks